The study of UFOs is anything but harmonious. UFO researchers are often their own worst enemies, engaging in character assassination, backbiting, and disinformation. So when a new and incredible source of UFO information comes along, the UFO community tends to take it with a grain of salt. Tonight in part 4 of our series, UFOs, the Best Evidence, George Knapp introduces us to a UFO source known as the Falcon.
One of the biggest UFO stories of 1989 was the taping of a conversation that allegedly took place between Space Shuttle pilot John Blaha and NASA concerning an alien spacecraft.
Houston, this is Discovery. We still have the alien spacecraft under observance.
Was this actually the voice of Blaha talking about a UFO? People wondered. Voice comparisons were made to find out.
Houston, this is Discovery. We still have the alien spacecraft under observance.
It's a shame we can't be here all the time with a permanent manned space station. We ought to get in that direction.
The man largely responsible for publicizing the alleged Blaha tape was Bob Exler, a former NASA mission specialist. But that was 1989. This year, Exler says it was all a hoax, and the government did it.
There's an experimental transmission facility by the Air Force in the geographic location of the origin of the transmission. The National Security Agency is located within that area. It's a hoax of unknown origin, but there's room for speculation. It just is too good a hoax for someone to just contrive and come up with.
Exler and others suspect that distortion and disinformation are the government's primary tools for dealing with the UFO topic. Journalist Bill Moore can recite a long list of examples of how the government has spoon-fed bogus UFO information to gullible researchers. Moore admits he even played a role in one such scheme. Moore alleges the official lying dates back to the 1940s, when the Air Force began studying UFO cases.
80% remained unexplained in 1949. Yet they were telling the public at that time, in public press releases dated the same month, that only 10% remained unexplained. Flat out lie to the press. At the time, the press couldn't say different, but now, 40 years later, with freedom of information and access to that document, it's clear they lied to the press. Why did they do that? And all the way through, you can trace a deliberate pattern of disinformation, deception, the laughter curtain, the ridicule, the debunking, the UFO bashers that come out, there's still a few of them around, and say that anybody involved with UFOs is a crackpot.
Anyone who knows UFOs knows the brilliant but arrogant Bill Moore. His fingerprints are all over the foremost cases and questions in ufology. He and Stan Friedman are primarily responsible for painstakingly documenting the Roswell incident, the apparent crash of a UFO in New Mexico in 1947, which is perhaps the best documented UFO case of all. The so-called MJ-12 documents, which allege that a secret panel of scientists and military men are in control of a UFO cover-up, first surfaced in an anonymous mailing to Moore's close friend, film producer Jamie Chanderay. The UFO community is deeply divided over the legitimacy of the MJ-12 papers. Even more controversial, though, is Moore's reliance on an informed source codenamed Falcon.
The entire historical aspects from day one, from the first sighting near Mount Rainier to recently, I think within the last 5 years, is contained in a large book that we refer within the intelligence community as a Bible.
Can you give me a physical description of these aliens?
A creature about 3'4" to 3'8" tall. Their eyes are extremely large, almost insect style. Their eyes have a couple of different inner lids, and that's probably because they were born on a planet that had a sun, a binary sun. The days were extremely bright. They have no teeth as we know it. They have a hard gum-like area. Their internal organs are quite simple. They have a one organ which encompasses what we would refer to as a heart and lungs. It's one pulmonary sac. Their brain is more complex than ours. It has several different lobes than ours have. Their hearing is quite better than ours, almost better than the dogs. Small areas, the side of their heads. And sexual organs they have males and females. And if the female has the sexual organs similar to ours, similar to our females, that don't require very much liquid. They transfer all the food that they eat into liquids. They extract the liquid. The body extracts the liquids out of the food, so they don't require a lot of liquids. But they have been able to eat some basic food products, vegetables and fruits that we would eat. But I believe they have problems digesting our meat products, and I don't believe that they eat meat on their planet.
Falcon is one of a dozen alleged intelligence operatives who've been funneling information to Moore and Chandray. The other sources have also been assigned bird-like code names, including Condor and Hawk. Falcon, in particular, has vocalized support for many of the same UFO positions defended by Moore, namely the existence of MJ-12, the legitimacy of the Aquarius document, which alleges that flying saucers are being tested in Nevada, and the reported plot to withhold UFO information from the public. Moore and Chandray have, for the first time, produced a videotape for mass distribution, sort of Falcon's greatest hits.
Our job out there in the field was to investigate sightings, landings, or contacts with UFOs or UFOs extraterrestrials in a way that we wouldn't draw attention to the public. So we had to do our investigation through a covert means. And that's why we were disguised or under cover of military or other federal agencies when we were investigating these UFO sightings. We run it just like we would run an intelligence operation. We would solicit either witting or unwittingly. We recruit these people just as an intelligence officer would recruit an agent in a foreign country to provide us information on these sightings. We've used newspaper personnel, wittingly and unwittingly, and we've used scientists, or we have posed as scientists. Well, sometimes when you deceive the public, you're protecting the public. And I certainly would protect the public in deception operations if it was for their own good. But some aspects of this UFO investigations that have occurred over the years have no reason to be withheld from the public. The general knowledge that there were aliens that landed on Earth back in the early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, and that we have had some type of crude communications with them since.
Moore and Chandray say they have independent confirmation that Falcon is or was an intelligence operative. But even some of Moore's closest contemporaries have reservations about the material.
This whole business about Condor and Falcon and guys putting out documents with false statements in them, I've seen some, and I've tried to stay away from it. I try to work with something I can get my mitts into.
I'm convinced, for example, that Falcon and Condor, the alleged agents who spoke on the UFO Cover-Up live program in October 1988, were embroidering a lot of the information they gave out. I'm absolutely convinced that some of that was disinformation, but the important thing is that they are confirming that there has been contact. Contact has been established.
Moore's UFO enemies are less complimentary. They think Falcon and Condor are trying to use them as pigeons. There's a widespread assumption that Falcon is a former Air Force intelligence officer named Richard C. Doty, who is infamous in UFO circles for gleefully misleading researchers. Some have alleged that Moore is either an agent himself or is at least on the disinformation payroll. Still others say Moore is just out to make money, whether on Falcon tapes or MJ-12 documents.
If I were out to get rich to make money on this thing, I'd have done that 5 years ago when we got the MJ-12 document. I'd have sold them the National Enquirer. In fact, they wanted to buy them. I wouldn't sell them. I had 2 publishers approach me, want to do the story. I turned them down. We don't know about this stuff. Until we know something about this material, there isn't a story here. So it's not money. What I'm out to do is find out what the bottom line is and how it will influence man's future. I think it's high time somebody rubbed the human race's nose in its own excrement and said, hey folks, to an alien, this is what you look like. This is what you're doing to your planet.
As difficult as it may sound to us, they are so far advanced and that they can't communicate with us like we can communicate with each other on this planet. And I believe it's partly because of them being scared of us as a different type of creature.
If there are aliens, it's no wonder they're scared of us, considering how some humans have reacted to the prospect of their presence. Tomorrow, a look at how UFOs have become convenient vehicles for conspiracy buffs and right-wing zealots. George Knapp, Eyewitness News 8.